A Pontiac, Michigan listener sent us this question. I'm confused with two verses in Genesis. In chapter 46, verse 34, Joseph tells his brothers that they are to explain to the Pharaoh that their occupation is with cattle because being a shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. Yet in chapter 47, verse 3, the brothers tell Pharaoh they're shepherds. Can you help me with this?
And that, of course, presents a problem, but I think one that's easily solved. The two verses are actually right together, to tell the truth. The 34th verse of the 46th chapter is the last verse of chapter 46, and so in chapter 47, we come down to verse 3. Now let me read these two verses. Now it's Joseph instructing his brothers what to do and what to say when they come into the court of Pharaoh. We're told now in verse 3 of chapter 47, and Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What's your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. Now there are two, I think, satisfactory explanations for that. First of all, I think that the display of the glory of the Pharaoh so startled these young men that they couldn't follow their instructions. They just had to blurt out what they felt was the truth, and they told the truth that they were shepherds and did not follow the instructions of their brother. That is one explanation. The other explanation is simply that when they got into the presence of Pharaoh, they felt so comfortable, and that Joseph had probably underestimated his influence in the court of Pharaoh. And actually, Pharaoh was willing to accept these brethren, even if they were shepherds. And that, I think, after the appearance of the brethren there, and when he got around to asking them, what's your occupation? That would be a normal thing. Why, they just came right out with it because there would be no danger in that. By this time, they could see that they had a real welcome at the court. Either one of those explanations would be satisfactory, but I've thought of the other side of the coin. I can't imagine 11 of these boys who've been out with sheep and been shepherds. They just didn't have an opportunity to send their suits to the dry cleaners. And I think they smell like sheep, to tell the truth. And I think that would have kept them from saying what Joseph wanted them to say. And this reveals, by the way, that Joseph was not perfect. Joseph is probably the finest type of the Lord Jesus Christ that we have in the Old Testament. But after all, he is a human being, has the same nature that you and I have, a fallen human nature, and that they responded in the way that they did, probably out of natural fear. I've always felt that was probably it. They were just so overwhelmed by the glory of this kingdom. That, to me, would be the explanation of it. But I mention the other and suggest rather facetiously that they smell like shepherds. And I'm sure that 11 of them coming in there, and that's how many brethren there were, it would be quite obvious what they were. So they did not need to use that as an excuse. May I revert back to saying that Joseph, being one of the finest types of Christ, and it's certainly here when the Lord Jesus was called before the officials of his day, he did not dissemble at all. When they asked him, are you the Christ? He said, thou sayest. And thou sayest is an expression which means you said it. That's right. That's who I am.